The Productivity Commission has issued a scathing report of Australia's foreign investment rules and its trade rules, saying that we're one of the most restrictive countries in the world when it comes to international business. Well, I'm joined by Adam Creighton, Chief Economic Commentator for The Australian. Adam, this really does slam the way we do business, doesn't it?
Well, this is always a fairly scathing report. Every year the Productivity Commission comes to a total figure for the value of subsidies to businesses and also tariff concessions, and it came to $15.6 billion for last financial year, and that was roughly half and half for tariffs and for direct subsidies. And as you pointed out, it also said that the foreign investment regime is among the most restrictive in the world. In fact, only Korea, Canada and New Zealand have more restrictive regimes than Australia does. And the PC's recommended that the threshold above which the Treasurer can veto foreign investment proposals be lifted from $248 million, where it is now, to $1.1 billion.
Now, one of those, in that figure, that $15.6 billion, I mean, that's taxpayers' money for at least half of it, which is being spent on business unnecessarily. Is that correct?
Yeah, certainly that's true. So this $7.8 billion, which, as you say, is a direct budget subsidy, much of this is still going to the car industry, mind you. Even though all the major producers have announced that they will leave Australia, they of course are still receiving various legacy arrangements. The rest of the funding pretty much goes to a variety of industries, including the finance sector, the mining sector in parts, and it totals $7.8 billion.
Now, at a time when the Abbott government's trying to get through big savings for the budget, surely they must look at this report and say, well, here's a great way to save some money.
Yeah, perhaps, although my suspicion is they won't be accepting too many of these recommendations because of the political difficulty. I mean, as you point out, they're already facing a difficult time getting through some fairly contentious measures through the Senate. For some strange reason, Australians do not like the idea of foreign investment. That's what polling continually tells us. And so I think it's very unlikely that they will come out at this time and say that they will change the foreign investment restrictions.
And finally, Adam, the other big recommendation was that we really should have foreign investment in some of our major companies like Qantas, also looking at airports and financial services.
Yeah, certainly that's right. Various parts of Australia's economy are still protected by unique legislation, such as airports and media companies and so forth. And the PC has said that these restrictions should largely be lifted, and that is particularly controversial at the moment in the wake of Qantas's troubles. So Qantas obviously has a cap of 49% on its foreign ownership, and its management has been asking the government to lift that. But so far the government has not made any concrete announcements about that.
And that releasing those restrictions should actually free up competition, right? That would be better for consumers.
Well, certainly ultimately that's true, but in the meantime it would probably lead to politically difficult takeover bids from foreign companies, which of course in the long run is better for everyone. You want your capital to go to the most efficient uses, and of course we've seen in the case of Qantas that because they can't raise sufficient capital cheaply enough, that they're struggling to compete because of this artificial constraint on them. But the politics are of course difficult.
Now, it was also fascinating the way they looked into the recent free trade agreements with Japan and with South Korea, and also that influences the upcoming one with China, saying that in fact the rules around these trade agreements are actually very restrictive for trade.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. I mean, we tend to call these bilateral agreements with say Japan and China that we've recently been in the process of signing as free trade agreements, but they are really only freer trade agreements. There are still very many restrictions entailed within them, and so there's always been a debate in economics about whether it's better just to cut your tariffs unilaterally and not reach special deals with countries. But recently Australia hasn't pursued that, and so the PC has kind of attacked, if you like, our strategy of coming to unique arrangements with different countries.
Yes, and one of those interesting figures that they brought out was there's over 5,000 independent rules governing trade. I mean, when the government's keen to cut red tape for business, the Commission says that in fact they're putting more burden on business.
Yeah, certainly, and I've got no doubt the federal opposition will be homing in on that point when they read this report today.
Adam Creighton, thanks very much.
Thanks, Jackson.